lies affect the masses. There's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Come on in. Listen, we're going to dive in. We've got a lot to cover tonight. We're going to just keep going. My name is Janice Pons. I'm the host on this broadcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Tonight, we're going to continue our journey as we the people. We've been focused on a specific path for months now, learning about our nation, getting a clear understanding of how it's structured, how it's supposed to work. This flag is a great symbol connected with our amazing nation. Our presidential seal represents we the people's house. We went from 13 colonies we had 13 states on September 9th, 1776. And they were previously known as the United Colonies. Now, the colonies' journey to becoming the United States of America involves several key events. We're going to dissect, we want to understand our nation. It's so much that what I found is as I understood and gained an understanding of the events that unfolded that made America, as it is now the United States of America, it just really intrigued me. And I was like, I don't remember learning those things. So we're going to take some points, some historical points, and tie it in with some other dynamics as well as it relates to us today. So there were some key events that we're just going to look at and tie it into some things. And so just stick with me. We're going to understand some things together as a nation. The colonies had a journey to becoming the United States of America. Now, these key events, there's the Declaration of Independence, okay? On July 4th, the 4th of July, the Declaration of Independence, Independence Day. On July 4th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress approved the Declaration of Independence, which formally separated the colonies from Great Britain. Then we had the American Revolutionary War. That war began as a result of people saying, we've had enough. So the war began in 1775 and lasted until 1783. The colonists fought for independence over issues like taxation without representation. Now, I'm going to ask something. Do we currently have any taxation going on in our nation today without representation? Are we being represented regarding everything that we are being taxed for, that they're using our tax dollars for? I'm just going to leave that there for food for thought. We had the Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3rd, 1783, ending the war and granting the 13 colonies independence. The 13 original states that became the United States were Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, where I'm originally from, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, and Virginia. Now we have 50 different states. That's what our great flag is about. There are so many various dynamics occurring within those 50 states that make up the whole nation. There was quite a journey to get to where we are now as the 50 states. Within our states, so many are struggling. I'm continuing to pray for the 265,900,000 Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, can barely make ends meet. That's 78% of working Americans. I keep saying that number because it's relevant. That's a lot of people. Leading up to the election, 79%, 80%, let's round it off, say we were going in the wrong direction. That's the majority of the nation. Remember Brett Baer having that interview with Kamala Harris, that was so powerfully revealing regarding her ability to handle direct questions and relevant questions. That's when it came out about the 79% saying we're going in the wrong direction. So who can we trust? If we have questions regarding if we can trust our government, how important is it that we know that we really know our rights as citizens? I realized that we had rights as citizens. I had things that happened to me years ago. It was a violation of my constitutional rights, and I didn't even know what they were. I could have held people accountable, but once I learned, I was like, oh, the system is set up for me to do that. So many are absolutely clueless regarding our constitutional rights. The Constitution exists to establish the framework for the United States government, outlining the powers and the limitations of each branch, protecting individual liberties, and ensuring a system of checks and balances to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful. Oh boy, has that ever been challenged? Effectively acting as a foundational document for the country to operate under and safeguard who? Our rights as citizens. It was created to address the weakness of the Articles of Confederation. That's what we had in the beginning. And it was weak. It was fragile. So they had to come back and just flesh that thing out, which preceded the Constitution. When you read the Articles of Confederation, that came first. It preceded it, our current Constitution, by providing we needed a stronger central government while still respecting state powers. Now, what did the Constitution give us? Guys, we got constitutional rights. Remember they fired that coach down in Texas for just kneeling at the 50-yard line? It was a violation of his constitutional rights. He won. There are things that go on in this nation, and you got to go, wait a minute, what are my rights? Here's some key points about the Constitution of what it gives us. It gives us structure of government. It defines the three branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branch of our government, and how they interact with each other. It's there for us. It gives us checks and balances. Each branch has the ability to limit the power of the other branches, preventing anyone from becoming too dominant. Whoa, has that been challenged in modern times? Lord have mercy. Individual rights. The Constitution, particularly through the Bill of Rights, guarantees fundamental freedoms like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of assembly. What else does it give us? Adaptability. While the Constitution is a foundational document, it can be amended to reflect changing societal needs. Someone may be totally oblivious regarding what their rights even are, yet I had a rude awakening about our rights when we were attacked by COVID-19. A lot of Americans experienced what was called vaccination discrimination, where their rights were being violated. How? Let's go there, because it happened in our nation. Does anyone remember Joe Biden firing thousands of servicemen in the military for not taking that shot? Of great significance, this was done while letting millions of unvaccinated illegal immigrants come into our country that were dropped off into various communities, and they were unvaccinated, and then he fired thousands of our servicemen. Let that sink in. Make it make sense. Let that sink in. Thousands of fully trained, combat-ready service members were subjected to the COVID-19 vaccine mandate, forced service members, they had to choose. I'm a Blue Star Mama. This stuff just rattled me to no end. They had to choose between their love of their country and their sincerely held religious beliefs. Now, what does that mean? I had to find out real quick. What does that mean? Because people, this discrimination, they were being pressured. They lost their jobs. What defines and they were fired. Our military, 8,000 of them were fired. What defines a sincerely held religious belief? Moral or ethical beliefs about what is right and wrong that are sincerely held with the strength of traditional religious views may meet the definition of a sincerely held religious belief. The mandate upended the careers and benefits that our military men and women rightly earned through their dedicated service to our country. And to this day, they continue to endure the consequences. Guess what happened? They fired. They got rid of 8,000. Guess how many came back? Only 43 of the more than 8,000 U.S. service members who were discharged from the military for refusing to be vaccinated against COVID-19 sought to rejoin 8 months after the vaccine mandate was officially repealed, according to data that was provided by military branches. All-time low in recruitment is what we're dealing with now, and retention of its service members. We're down at least 16,000 service members, guys, thanks to this recruitment failure and the Biden administration's policies alone. That's the tip of the iceberg. Our military is clearly struggling to enlist Americans ready to fight for our country. That should be ringing alarm bells to every American, especially lawmakers. What are we doing? What are y'all doing on Capitol Hill? What's going on in this house? This house. The people's house. The White House. What's going on? Our nation is now totally vulnerable simply because those in leadership at that time failed to respect and honor the constitutional rights of thousands of Americans. Let that sink in. Just think about that. We're vulnerable because of some silly decision that was making, some irresponsible seeking of power decision, firing 8,000 members of our military. How careless can so-called leadership be? We're talking about constitutional rights. We're talking about our Constitution. We're going to take some intricate examinations of how we really need to know those constitutional rights. Due to those rights being violated for thousands in our military, we are militarily much weaker than we've ever been. I'm concerned. I pay attention to this stuff. Meanwhile, the Chinese Communist Party is building up its self-reliance in science and technology, bolstering strategic capabilities and making its industrial supply chains more resilient. With its Made in China 2025 campaign, our greatest adversary is acting to quickly dominate the U.S. in all fields. They're even buying up land beside our military camps. Who's letting this go on? They're taking the lead, including nuclear, aerospace, and even weapons that are capable, like intercontinental ballistic missiles. Right now, China is the world's largest maritime fighting force with 234 warships to our 219. The president of China has made it very clear that the People's Republic of China is focused on more quickly elevating the armed forces to world-class standards to surpass the U.S. military on all fronts. That means modernizing equipment, focusing on joint training on land, becoming the world's largest naval power with more than 370 ships and submarines at sea, and building up manned and unmanned aircraft in the air. Many argue that China's rapid military buildup has left the People's Liberation Army Navy poised to overtake our Navy quicker than previously believed. Who's paying attention to this stuff? Make no mistake, the Chinese are doing this to gain control over important economic trade routes through the South China Sea and around the world. Their president has also called on the People's Liberation Army to be ready to take Taiwan by force by when? 2027, and reunite its former empire. This would be the first of many forceful acquisitions of democratic and free states and territories. It's not going to stop there. The Chinese Communist Party poses a real and dangerous threat to us, the United States, as China races to global military and economic dominance. The U.S. must not fall behind. I was livid when Obama cut our military by $700 billion. Trump came in and built it back up. And then Joe Biden and Kamala Harris left billions of our military equipment in the hands of terrorists in Afghanistan. And you all remember the fateful day when 13 of our soldiers were killed. You remember it? Senseless. We can't fall behind, guys, but right now it's not looking good. We must maintain a ready, trained force to address the many foreign threats that we face. Remember, in July of 2024 of this year, there was a Chinese and Russian bomber flying off of our West Coast. I was livid as a Blue Star mother regarding this. We are going to spend some time examining our constitutional rights. We said, well, Judge, what's all this got to do with our constitutional rights? Listen, we're not even going to have a nation that's in survival for our Constitution to be in effect and for our rights to be honored when we got things like Chinese and Russian bombers flying off of our West Coast and a Russian warship going down past Florida with hypersonic missiles that we don't even have. I pay attention to all of this. And then they're running around here talking about Project 2025, where the real focus needs to be on Agenda 2030 that threatens our constitutional rights as American citizens. We need to be talking about these things. With all this going on, so many say, who in the world can we trust? And definitely, can we trust our government? Good question. Can we trust our government? If we've been betrayed, how can we even begin to think about trusting anyone again? I hear people say, I'm not ever going to vote because I don't trust them. I don't trust neither side. That's a choice. And a lot of us, we don't trust people, period. Because we've been taken advantage of. So, should we trust our government? Should we trust our leaders? Are they trustworthy? Who can we trust? There's some, from a clinical perspective, we're going to look at trust. Trust. Who can I trust? I got my people, I need one hand to count them, that I trust them unequivocally with my life. And they trust me. I got them. I got their back. I'm just that kind of friend. We're going to look at just some tips for learning to trust again if you've been betrayed. Just consideration. We're just thinking out loud. Sometimes we have to start with trusting ourselves. Trust yourself. That's our clinical perspective. We're just going to look at the dynamics of trust. Believe in your ability to cope with a broken heart and betrayal. Boy, that's heavy. But can you imagine how those soldiers serving our country felt? The 8,000 that were fired, 43 came back. That speaks for itself. Trust. Individually, you can build trust in yourself. How? By being kind, setting reasonable goals, and spending time with yourself, nurturing yourself. These military folk, they had to regroup majorly. And sometimes as individuals, we just got to regroup. We got to regroup. We got to go, you know what? I was betrayed. I was taken advantage of. And we have to go, I got to regroup. Pull back. Sometimes you got to pull away from people, especially if they're putting a demand on you. Demanding your time. Sometimes you have to pull back for you. You have to regroup. Sometimes we need to forgive ourselves. We make mistakes. Letting go of shame and guilt by forgiving ourselves for past wrongdoings. What about acknowledging that you even have trust issues? Sometimes the acknowledgement is like, I don't trust anybody. I've been betrayed. Being open about why you have trust issues so others can understand you better. You know, I'm always talking about the therapeutic process. It provides structure and you give a language to it. I have trust issues is what some people need to say. Just understanding that. Oh, okay. It helps others to understand us as individuals. And this fall, I'm talking about trust, communicating openly, being a good listener, and avoiding sounding accusatory. Just listen. Be a reflective listener. Okay, wait a minute. So what I'm hearing you say is, you are challenged with trusting somebody. Yeah. Sometimes people just need to be affirmed. Yeah. It's powerful what happens when they get affirmed. We're talking about trusting. We're talking about from a clinical perspective. Trust. People have been betrayed. Our country has betrayed people, groups of people. In the military, that example, Native Americans, former slaves. People have been betrayed. They got trust issues. I remember somebody saying, they were trying to get me to, why can't we get all these people to take that shot? Why? And the majority of them, I'm telling you, this is a dynamic that I saw. The majority of them were Black Americans. They were leery of it. And they would say, why are they not taking it? I said, do you want an answer to that question? They were like, yeah, I don't get it. I said, do you know about the Tuskegee experiments? If you don't, go look it up right now when this podcast is over. Go look it up. What happened? Trust. The Tuskegee experiment that happened with Black men in America in this nation, going up into the 70s. Go look it up. Trust. Sometimes saying no is involves establishing boundaries. Create boundaries and make your voice heard in relationships. I remember when God had me one time to say this to somebody that kept blasting me, pushing the envelope. pushed in the envelope. He said, this is what you need to say. And I said it to him. I said, listen, baby. Listen, I need you to hear me. I said, no. But I said, no. But I need you. Okay. What is it that you don't understand? The N or the O? Oh, I'm sorry. I accept your apology. Part of establishing boundaries is you're not going to let anybody off the hook. They need to take responsibility. Trust. Creating boundaries and making your voice heard in situations and in relationships. Trust your intuition. Learning to trust your intuition reduces pain after making a decision sometimes. You know, the Spirit of God will speak to your heart. He'll say, stop, not now, wait, hold up, trust that. I mean, wow, sometimes it can literally save our lives. Don't go over there. Yeah. Listen, what have we looked at tonight? We're looking at our Constitution, our rights, the need to know them. When are they being violated? We get betrayed. Has our country betrayed us? Yes. I'm a foundational Black American, FBA. I'm an ADOS, American descendant of slaves, one and the same. Yes, we've been betrayed. And we have to learn how to trust. Some people deal with intergenerational trauma. We've just been traumatized. And this is why I am such an advocate of the therapeutic process in building trusting relationships. Learning to reach out to one another, go out for some coffee, take somebody to lunch that they haven't trusted, a group of people. And just, you know, I just want to be with you. I just want to hear what you're thinking. That's how you build it. Yeah. What are we talking about? We're one nation under God. Indivisible. With liberty and justice for all. America is in trouble. We've been on a trajectory that we've never been in before. Who's ever heard of firing our military? 8,043 came back. Man, wow, that says a lot. But listen, I'm believing that we're going to have the strongest military ever. We need to have it. I know one of the goals that Donald Trump had for America is to build a dome of protection over us in terms of the protection, the same kind that Israel has, that when they were attacked by missiles from Iran, it repelled them. You know what? We may need to consider if that's something we need to have if we had a Chinese and a Russian bomber flying off of our West Coast. Is that worthy of our consideration? I thank God that that man wanted that. We'll see what happens with our military, but I know this. Our nation needs us to come together. We need strong leadership with backbone. We need people on Capitol Hill. Our taxpayer dollars are paying are paying for them to have a salary of $174,000 a year. And a lot of them within 5 years, they are millionaires. Don't forget about we the people. Don't forget about our protection. That's a whole other podcast, and I have dealt with that in the past about the dynamics that cause that to happen. Our nation is very vulnerable, but I'm believing that God is not done with America. You know why? We are still here. And I want us to pray for our nation. I want us to come together. We need to be having conversation. You know, my whole motto on social media is what would happen if we talk to and with each other versus at each other. Remember, we're one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all as we go together from destruction to dignity. God bless you. I'll see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are God empowered, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.